Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm back again with another review, this time for Doom, The Dark Ages, the latest game, of course, in the Doom franchise from id and Bethesda, available now on Game Pass. It's on, obviously, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5 as well. Yeah, like going back to 2016, it had a sort of resurgence, if you will, when they, after a very long, tumultuous development for Doom 4 and trying to get it off the ground and rebooting it, and Rage not really hitting, they basically came upon a super winning formula with Doom 2016, which you call it Doom 2016. They just call it Doom. They did that thing where, like, oh, the franchise has been out long enough, and we don't really want to call it 4 because that'll like somehow hurt the sales, so we'll just call it Doom again. Just confuse everyone. So affectionately referred to Doom 2016. I like to just sometimes just call it Doom 4 just for simplicity's sake. But yeah, that was my game of the year in 2016 going back. Just a sort of FYI, if you will. Like, I greatly enjoyed Doom 2016, and it felt like a very visceral, fun, but the gameplay design was, it wanted you to engage in the combat. I wanted you to get in there and fight, and I thought that was very, very cool. It wasn't just sort of, because we'd been on a sort of stop and pop, get behind cover, sneak around, do things strategically, blah blah blah, and at some point you just want to like beat someone's head in, and that was Doom 2016. That gave us that, and it gave us that in the most emphatically with the glory kills. So as an enemy got to basically like 10% or some low percentage of their health, they would start glowing, and when they were glowing, you could run up to them and melee kill them, and depending on where you were standing, front, side, above, below, whatever, you would get different types of kills on the enemies in Doom 2016. They were called glory kills, and they were the greatest thing. And that was like just the main gameplay feature. And of course, there was a lot more to it as well, but they followed that up with Doom Eternal, which became sort of like this crazy Mirror's Edge version of Doom. You had a hook shot and double jumps, and it became super platform heavy. So for the Dark Ages, they wanted to do a prequel. And they wanted to kind of get it more boots on the ground. So no more zipping around like Spider-Man, Doomslayer, and jumping around like crazy. So they wanted to ground the game. So they went Captain America mode. You get a shield, and the game is all about strafing, kind of going back to like original Doom, strafing style gameplay and parrying. So strafing, parrying, bonking. This is bonk and parry. If Doom 2016 was rip and tear, Doom The Dark Ages is bonk and parry. And it's pretty great in that sense. Like here, like it's definitely feels. On the one hand, there's this like you lose a lot of mobility, you lose a lot of speed from Eternal, and I'm kind of sideways on going more boots on the ground because some people are really turned off by it. I think it's fine. I think both actually work, which is a weird thing to say, and I think probably most modern day Doom, fans, how they're split, probably won't agree, where it's like, oh, you can have one and the other. I think both are viable, and I think both work, and I think both hit what they were kind of, excuse me, going after here. So I like the boots on the ground thing, and I personally like parrying. I think parrying should be in every real-time game. The parrying works here. It does have a bit of the parry's a little bit. You parry before the attack hits, not on the attack hitting. It's before. Sometimes I have to like sort of remind myself on that. But the thing is, and I guess I should probably just jump into it right now. The one thing that I think the Doom: The Dark Ages does that is absolutely exceptional, I don't know. I'm mixing my words here. It has a slider. So you have your standard difficulties. They have their funny names, but easy, normal, hard, extreme, hard. One death mode. So you have all these. You have all these normal difficulty, just this, and that, and then you can go further in, and you can do difficulty sliders. So you can have resources give you more for picking them up, but you can also have the enemies be more aggressive. So what I did is, like, I took normal, but I made the enemies more aggressive. But I also made it so that I picked up things more. And then I wanted the parry window to be wider. So you could go in and individually slide specific aspects of the game's difficulty to tailor your experience completely. And, that's not even, and you can add this on top of, like one hit, or one death mode only kind of stuff. And I actually think this is great. This is the coolest thing, there is. And I can't imagine why anyone would be upset about this, because again, they have this sort of like, oh, Dante must die, Doomslayer must die mode, and they have like ultra difficulty. They have ultra fast enemies, ultra aggressive enemies. You can make the projectiles come, fly faster. You could do all these things to the difficulty sliders, and I think it's just brilliant. Honestly, I think it's the coolest. I think it's the coolest thing. I think this is wonderful. It's in many respects, it's like a 2 steps forward kind of thing. So, which then naturally results in what's the 1 step back, and this is where kind of like honestly my biggest complaint of the game comes from, is that they pretty much sacrificed glory kills. You can still get them, but they're pretty much just he just smashes his shield into an enemy, he kicks an enemy. The only like sort of unique glory kills come from jumping up and getting like the jumping down glory kills, but there's only like 1 or 2 of them. Usually there's like one type of top down glory kill per enemy, and I'll like 3 or 4 generic, hit you with hard with my shield, smack you with my mace, or kick you really hard for just running up to someone who's dazed and glory killing them. So the glory kills pretty much got nerfed to bejesus and back, and it does leave a little bit to be desired, because I feel like the parrying and the shield, having like a block button and a shield that you can throw like Captain America and whatever, I think that would have actually really benefited having more glory kills. Because again, your shield is your chainsaw, because it has like a little chainsaw blade wrapped around the rim of the shield, and he has a generic glory kill where he'll just take the fatties like Mancubuses and just chop them in half vertically, or sometimes he'll like, if you jump down, he'll like just chop off like someone's neck real quick when they're pinned to the ground when you jump on them. So it feels like I'm missing something a little bit. It's hard for me not to notice, like, because glory kills were the enticement. They were the dopamine rush. They were the drug of Doom 2016, because you wanted just to get in there and see how much you could destroy an enemy. And also to that fact is there is a very, very tiny amount of power up. Let's call them, if you know, it's like we'll call them like the invincibility stars from Super Mario Brothers. There is a very, very tiny amount of those, and they don't show up till the very end of the game. So again, what was sprinkled moments in Doom 2016 and Eternal, where you would just go on like murder sprees for getting a specific invincibility power for a brief moment. There's a couple of them. There's like maybe 3. I don't even know if it might just be 2. It's disappointing. It's disappointing because I think everything else kind of works. Now, as far as the rest of the gameplay, what about the level design? Because they're going back to really large scale levels. They're with a lot of like maze-like structure. This is the most boomer shooter game I think I've played in 25 years. The level design of this is really going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. Levels are long expeditions, and there's a lot a lot of secrets in them, a lot to find in them. It is everything but a Call of Duty style, run down a corridor, turn left, run down, turn right, run forward. That's the level. These levels are not really guided experiences. They're very much like, oh, you need to disable the 3 turrets. So you spread out and go, you search around a big level and find the 3 turrets and disable them. Or you need to find, a red card, either, the red, you need to find a yellow key card. You need to find a blue key card. You need to find the secret key card. It's that stuff. And of course, the things that are added, of course, is there's a big mech mode and there's a flying dragon mode. Flying dragon's hard to describe. It's kind of like a janky Star Fox, but it kind of works. It has like a mechanic where like if you hold down the L trigger, it'll stay in place, locked onto something, and it'll just sort of like move left and right, like pivoting on an axis. And then the mech is basically like just a big clunky mech. It basically functions like Punch-Out. Like a free roaming Punch-Out. It's not very deep, despite what they might want to say or claim. There's very little depth to the mech or the dragon. They don't get upgrades. You don't like have a skill tree for them, but they're fun. They're fun diversions. They do help break up the pace, add something to the gameplay. The dragon levels can get pretty long, but they're good. They're fun. They're needed. They're good things to have in this game, and as far as like how does it run? It runs on IdTech 6. I'm sorry, no, excuse me. IdTech 8. It runs on IdTech 8. Runs pretty smoothly, flawlessly. I played it on a Series X. I've heard it's a little fuzzy on a Series S. I have no idea how the Steam PS5 versions, I hear they're good, but it's IdTech 8, which means that it's going to run a hell of a lot better than Unreal. I did encounter a couple bugs with the game. There were a couple moments where the engine just completely bugged out. There was weird things where the game would constantly like forget between loading areas what my level, what my gun loadout was, my preset gun loadout. There was a glitch at one point where the controller froze and I had to turn the controller off, turn the controller back on, and it actually forgot all of my button changes because I like to have melee on a face button rather than on the right stick, and it completely forgot that after it glitched out. So there's some funny small stuff, but nothing major. I didn't ever have a full on crash, to the game's credit. But yeah, as far as all that goes. It's a much smoother, nice experience, at least on Series X, and I'm sure PS5 and high-end PC. One thing they do try to do in this game is they tried to go with a much more cinematic Doom. So you have a cutscene basically at the beginning and end of every level. And they did this because they said nobody was reading, the lore codexes in 2016 or in Doom Eternal. And the takeaway was to have a bunch of cinematics, which is like, I don't know why, because probably the wrong takeaway there. The reality is like, it's Doom. Who gives a shit? They thankfully, these cutscenes are very small, like in length. They're short. They do not have long-winded diatribes or whatever. But you will have moments where like characters are talking briefly about something and you just sit there and like, oh, I don't care, who cares? Like, and the funny thing is, if you wanted context, because the Doomslayer says one word in the whole game, even though he's in the middle of conversations multiple times, if you wanted to actually know what is actually going on, you actually have to stop and read the codexes you find. So you have to do it anyways. It's this bizarre thing where it's like we wanted the story to be engaging and cinematic, but they also knew that people's attention spans for Doom story are razor thin. So context is left out of these cutscenes, which you again have to go back and read. So it's very much like, I don't know what goal we were trying to accomplish here. As for what the story is, I don't know. Some dude who looks like Shinnok from Mortal Kombat, it wants to take over the universe or something. So, and he's from hell and he's bad, and so you fight him. I think I recognize some areas from Doom Eternal, only this time they're not like abandoned and decrepit. It's there's this weird, very Quake-looking aesthetic to the whole game where everyone lives in castles, in towns and fortresses, but they have straight up sci-fi tech. They have touchscreens and they have spaceships and they have all this stuff, but everyone for some reason still lives like in this weird medieval European castle like society. I don't know, who cares? It's very much like you can tell like someone cared a lot and it's kind of like it's sort of charming that someone tried to make something out of it, but on the other hand, like I just kind of want to kill demons, and that's all Doomslayer wants to do. So it doesn't screw it over by being, hey, we need to have Xenosaga long cutscenes. No, we don't. Doomslayer is as interested in the game world and lore as you, the player, are, which is really funny to me that they wanted to focus so heavily on it. How this connects to the other Dooms, I have no effing idea. It seemingly doesn't, because the original Doom was about a research facility on Mars in the future that was, working with like portals and transportation, and accidentally opened a portal to hell, and demons came out, and that's it. There's your plot. This is all about other planets and wraiths and you know what? I don't even want to get into it because like whatever. I mean, sure, I'm sure someone out there might get into this shit, but like, This is the madness scribbled notes of a teenager, juiced up on Mountain Dew, or Surge might be more appropriate in a boomer shooter's case like this. So yeah, this is just like the same kind of, generally the same kind of bullshit you've always had. Only now they're trying to put money into the cinematics of it, and it's kind of like, it's a noble effort, but it's probably a wasted effort. Oh, speaking of wasted efforts, let's talk about the music here. So after the major fallout with Mick Gordon over Doom Eternal, they went with a group, or I don't know if it's a group or a person, called Finishing Move to do the music for Doom: The Dark Ages. Is it as good as Mick's? No. Is it still pretty good? No. It's very generic metal. So hearing the music off game, just on its own, it actually sounds pretty good. You can see where they really do try to imitate the Doom 2016 Doom Eternal Mick Gordon kind of style, but it's never really hitting there. And again, the dynamicness, their dynamic way of implementing music in this game is you jump into a crowd of enemies, music turns on, and then fades out when they die. There's no like sort of build up where, say in one of it's 2016 or Eternal, you might go into a room when you're fighting some enemies and the music's still kind of like building. It's still kind of low, like da 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 da. And then you fight some more, and then all of a sudden a huge swarm appears in the midst of this fight, and then the music kicks in, kind of thing. The music doesn't seem to be anywhere near as dynamic as 2016 or Eternal, and the quality of the compositions, just the general, how good is the music? So it honestly, I feel like I was just playing Road Rash 64 or something, or some generic third-party game on the N64 that just used guitar samples for its soundtrack and called it a day. I don't know. Unimpressed entirely. I don't want to like shit on this person that I don't know too much, but they had large shoes to fill. They did not fill them. And worse, as they didn't really even stand out on their own in any way. It almost feels like you told an AI to write music like Doom, last two Doom games, and this is what you got. So, not impressive musically at all. Graphically, yeah, it looks great. It's Tech 8. Story-wise, gives a shit. Someone does. If you really do, you'll probably be happy with this. There is a sort of mid-game plot twist, I will say, that does seem pretty interesting, but it goes nowhere. And they don't really do anything with it other than to give you a really cool, interesting level or two. And that's basically it. A little unfortunate. Not that I was getting invested, but hey, it was something. Unfortunately, it doesn't really lead to much. But yeah, overall, how do I feel about Doom: The Dark Ages? I feel it's a really solid entry. I feel the gunplay is great. I love the pairing. I love the bonking. I think it's got good systems, but my God, does it need glory kills? As far as like the rest of the stuff goes, yeah, the game kind of runs out of steam about 2/3, 3/4 in. Where it doesn't really have much new to show you, so it's just basically a series of waves of pretty much the same enemies you fight all the time. And then there's a couple enemy types, again, flying enemies, the bane of everything. They're the most annoying to deal with. And then of course there's an enemy type that is flying and shielded, and they're a whole bundle of fun. So figure out what skill tree things can. There's a lot of ways to go with the skill tree and extra moves. Figure out the ones that do the most damage to these flying and shielded enemies, and you'll be good. You'll be golden. That's what I discovered, and it greatly relieved what would have been a much more annoying encounter rate. But the game gives you tools to get around this stuff. But yeah, I would say like, yeah, there's some flying enemies that you fight a lot, especially near the back end of the game, and they're never fun. They're never fun to fight. But you know what is fun to fight is most of the other stuff. And again, if the glory kills were there, we're so close to greatness. I think if there was a little bit more of that visceral, if there was a little bit more rip and tear along with the wonderful Parry and Bonk, we would have had like a perfect ice cream sundae here. But as it is, it's still pretty great. I just wish it had a little bit more of some of the stuff that made 2016 such a special game. Overall, I would say this is a good, solid 8.5. Wonderful game to have on Game Pass. If you're a Doom fan, if you're a boomer shooter, if you're an old fart like me who enjoyed old first-person shooters from the late 90s, you'll probably really dig this game because, it is you know, it is makeup on an old person when it comes to the game design and everything. It is a boomer shooter with modern day graphics. So if that all sounds up your alley, by all means, jump right in. I think the game's worth it. I think it's a lot of fun. I played it to completion, and I enjoyed almost my entire time with it. And yeah, I think it definitely lives up to the Doom name and legacy. I just wish it wasn't taking stuff that made 2016 so good and fun. I wish that wasn't left behind with adding the new mechanics with the shield and the mace and the other stuff. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel later, dudes.